Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the books that I've read recently. It's not that many. This is kind of going to be like a March wrap-up, I guess, but I don't want to call it that because two of the books that I'm going to be talking about I literally finished like yesterday, and we're like in mid-April. But I started them in March. I've been in a pretty bad reading slump for the past like 2.5 weeks, which I'm just like starting to get out of. I'll talk about why I got into that reading slump a little bit later after I finish talking about some of the books I read that put me in that reading slump, but you know, we'll get there. So the books that I'm going to be talking about are books that I started like at the beginning of March up until now, and it's mid-April. I have how many books to talk about? 6? Oh my god, can I count? 6. 6 books. Wow, that was like really hard. Quick math in my head. Counting and adding to 6? None of these books have anything to do with each other. There is like absolutely no theme with these books. They are all very different. So there's like a few that are kind of similar, but for the most part, none of them have anything to do with the other. Not that they have to. I just think that's funny that these are all very different books. So the first book that I read recently, which was at the very beginning of March, was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time because I really loved the movie when I was a kid, and I just never read the book for whatever reason. So I read it in March. I liked it, it was good, but it made me realize how little I remember from the movie. I'm going to try to roughly summarize this book for those that don't know what the story is about. This book follows a young girl named Sarah. I think she's like 8 or something at the beginning of the book. She grows up with a lot of money. Her dad has a lot of money, and he puts her in this like boarding school kind of thing. Sarah is very wise, she's very smart, she's very mature for her age. She speaks very, I don't know, not like an 8-year-old. Not how you would expect an 8-year-old to speak, I guess. And the like head bitch boss lady of this boarding school fucking hates her and is like, I hate that little bitch, whatever. But she's rich and she's gonna make my school look good. So she's like, okay, Sarah can be like my little pet, and she's like my favorite student, whatever. All the other girls in the other school fucking hate her too because she's like favored by the head bitch boss lady, and they like shit on her, I guess. Then, due to circumstances, Sarah loses all of her wealth, and she's basically turned into not a student anymore at the school. She becomes like a maid, essentially, and she has no money, absolutely nothing to her name, and the head bitch boss lady is like, you know what, fuck you, I never liked you anyway, and you mean nothing to me now, and you can't make my school look good anymore, basically. And then she's mistreated and like abused in this school by these people. I don't know, this is a very long summary. This is basically the entire fucking story, but it's the summary. You know what I mean? Whatever. It was good. It was good. It's written for children, so there are parts of the book where, you know, they're a lot sadder than what it seems. And being an adult reading this, I'm like, oh fuck. This is really heartbreaking. But it's not really written that way. Like, it's written kind of nonchalantly because it's made for children. I mean, I assume so. Like, I'm assuming that's why. But Sarah, throughout the entire book, she always has this attitude like everything's gonna be good. She's always very positive and whatever. And then there's times where she's in her like little attic of a room and she's like, I'm so sad right now. And I'm like, damn, I'm sorry. It was really sad at times. I did feel like I connected a lot with Sarah's character. I mean, not like now in my life, but like when I was a child, I feel like I connected with her character in like when I was a child. I hope that makes sense. Like if I was a child now reading this book, I would have connected with her character a lot. Yes. I do remember the story ending differently. I don't know why. So I don't know if the movie ends differently than the book, or if I just don't remember the movie correctly. But since finishing this book, I'm like, you know what? I need to rewatch the movie because I have no idea what even happened in the movie anymore at this point. I still haven't done that though. So, you know, it's on the to-do list. Rewatching this movie is on the to-do list, along with like 1,000 other things that will also get done at some point, you know? And I think that's all that matters. I gave it 4 stars. It was cute. It was good. So the next 3 books that I read recently, I'm not going to go too in-depth on because I did an entire reading blog dedicated to them. I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, so I read Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. Those are all the books in the trilogy. You know, you get it. So yes, like I said, I did an entire reading vlog on this trilogy, so if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on each individual book and how I felt about the series as a whole and whatever, I will put that reading blog on the screen somewhere or whatever if you want to go check that out. But to keep it short and sweet, I thought this series was okay. I actually read Shadow and Bone back when the cast was first released for the Netflix show and everybody was like freaking out over it and like super excited, and I was like, well, who the fuck are these characters? I don't know any of these people. What is a Darkling? I don't know what that means. And then I read Shadow and Bone at that point in like 2019 or something, and I like didn't really care about it that much. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't care to continue. You know, I learned who the Darkling was. I just didn't care. Basically. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. I don't need to watch this show. It's fine. Who cares? But then, you know, the trailer comes out and everybody's crying and everybody's so excited, and I'm like, well, now I care again. So let's finish the series. I didn't give it a chance. But I gave it a chance now, and I still feel the same. I gave each book 3 stars. All very average. Nothing stellar. Nothing that blew me away. I just thought the whole series was pretty bland, to be honest. I am still gonna watch the show. That is the whole reason why I read these books. So I'm definitely still gonna be doing that anyway, regardless of how I felt about the trilogy. But I am excited to see what they do with the story and if they can like make that better. I think the story has a lot of potential for something more to be developed from that just wasn't really done that well in the books. But I think that could be done better in the show. If they do that better in the show, I don't know, they could make it really bad. You never know. I read these books so fast and I didn't care about any of them, which is why I got into a pretty bad reading slump that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. After reading those books, I was like, you know what? I just need a break from reading in general. Like, I just can't do it right now. I read them so fast. And like I said, I didn't care about any of them. They were all kind of just whatever to me. And yeah, after that, I got into a pretty bad reading slump. But like I said before, I'm now getting out of it, which is good. And I was actually in the middle of 2 other books whenever I started reading Shadow and Bone. So I literally put 2 whole other books on pause so I could read this trilogy, and I didn't care about them. And then after that, I was like, you know, I just wanted to read something new or nothing at all. So I didn't even want to pick up the other 2 books that I had stopped in the middle of after reading them because I just didn't want to. I wanted something new or nothing at all. But I finally finished those 2 books like yesterday. The first one was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This book I have mentioned the synopsis of like 100 times on my channel, so I'm gonna do it again, but I'm not gonna go too in depth with it. This is a memoir about the author's experience in an abusive relationship, just to put it simply. What's really interesting about this book though is that the format is not that of like a traditional memoir. The formatting is a lot different. It's so hard to explain that I know I'm gonna do a really bad job, so I'm not even gonna really try to explain how exactly it's formatted. It's almost set up as like a collection of short stories, but it's all one story. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, each chapter, I guess, it's just like fragments of her relationship and her past. Kind of like how a short story collection is set up where each, you know, short story has its own section or whatever. Like, you read this short story and then you're on to the next one. It's kind of similar energy, but each short story is like a different memory from the relationship or a different experience from the relationship. Or there'd be times where instead of like a memory from the relationship, it was like a movie she watched that, you know, she connected with because it reminded her of her relationship and of her experiences. So I don't know, it was just all of that. I know that that was really good synopsis. I am really good at, you know, giving summaries of books. I've said this before and I will say it again until it happens. SparkNotes, you can hire me. Like, it's okay. You can hire me. Just hit me up. Hit me up. I can write your summaries for your website and they will be really good. Back to the book though. I thought it was really good. I gave it 5 stars. I kind of was going back and forth between like 4.5 and 5, but I felt like the only reason that I was thinking about giving it 4.5 is because I literally stopped in the middle of reading this to read Shadow and Bone and then came back to it like a month later. And I think that kind of affected my reading experience of this book, and I didn't think that was fair to the book. So yeah, I think if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have thought about giving it 4.5. So I just went with 5 anyway, because I think it's not good, and I think everybody should read it. So the last book that I've read recently is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I've mentioned on my channel like 100 times now that I want to reread the entire Mortal Instruments series because I have major FOMO over like Chain of Iron and whatever, Chain of Gold and all that business and like the Dark Artifices, and I've never read those and I just want to be in the loop, you know? However, I can't really just jump into the Dark Artifices or Chain of Gold and whatever that series is, The Last Hours, is that what it's called? I think so. Because I never finished the Mortal Instruments. I read the Mortal Instruments back when I was like 12, 13 years old, like up to City of Lost Souls, before City of Heavenly Fire even came out. And then I bought City of Heavenly Fire when it came out, and I never read it. So I have it. I just have never read it. And I think that's because, I think when I read the Mortal Instruments, I don't know, like I was obsessed with it, and then City of Heavenly Fire hadn't come out, and then I read a whole bunch of other things, and I kind of just, I don't know, I think I just kind of lost that interest. I didn't lose that interest completely in the Mortal Instruments. I think it just, that fire wasn't there anymore for it or something. I have no idea, but I just never read it. I also remember basically nothing about this entire series, so I wanted to reread it so that I wasn't just going into the Dark Artifices and the whatever the fuck series being like, what is all this? Who are these people? I have no idea. So I reread City of Bones. It was enjoyable. It was a good time. It was actually really funny rereading this because there were so many scenes that I know for a fact when I read this when I was like 12, 13 years old, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. This is peak literature. This is so good. Wow, shit's going down. And then I read it today and I'm just laughing. Because it's like cheesy and like kind of corny, but it's still fun. Like, it's not like bad, but I'm like, wow, this is shit. But it's like, it's just cheesy enough, but it's still good. Kind of like Star Wars. Star Wars is just cheesy enough, but it's still good. Not really comparing this to Star Wars, so don't. That's not what I meant. Not what I meant. When I first read this, when I was like 12, I gave it 5 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars this time. I gave it like 3. I debated between like 3 and 4. Definitely not 5. But I went back and forth between 3 and 4 because I still enjoyed it, but I think the reason why I enjoyed it mostly is because I had already read it when I was younger and I knew how much I enjoyed it then and like the entire series. So I think that just kind of like made that better. So, I mean, I don't know. Anywhere between 3 and 4. I don't really care. That's my rating. I'm gonna try and get to City of Ashes and City of Glass at least somewhere within the next few weeks because at first I was like, oh, I can read like 1 book a month, like in the series. But I was like, well, there's like 6 books. I'm not gonna finish this series until like, I don't know, 6 months from now. And I think that's a little ridiculous because I'm rereading the series primarily so that I can read the other ones. So I gotta read these a little bit faster than that. So I gotta get it moving. But yes. But yeah, I had fun with this reread. It was a good time. And now my hand is hurting because this book is kind of heavy and I've been holding it for so long. So those are all the books that I read recently. Not that much. Not that many. Thank you, Shadow and Bone, for the lovely reading slump that you put me into. That sounds so mean. I don't want to like attack Shadow and Bone like that. It was fine. It was okay. average, not that awesome, but it was okay. Did put me in a reading slump though, cannot ignore that. But now that I'm exiting my reading slump, hopefully I'll read more. That's always a goal. Read more things. Let me know what you've read recently. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about today. I would love to know. But yeah, that concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see y'all next time. Bye!